overlords better as well, and he would be in a great position. Now, you might be thinking, oh, isn't Roach Hydra better than just roaches, like I said before? Yeah, why hasn't he swapped to them this early? He doesn't have enough roaches. You need a lot of roaches, at least I'd say about 25, 30 before you start adding hydras, and then you always want at least 2 or 3 roaches to every hydra, minimum. So we do see now, you know, Rhett still has no vision over this side, a new roach army coming in. His army is well positioned to deal with it this time, but, you know, he doesn't really have more army than his opponent, and so he's still losing drones. Inertia is just like focusing down hydras and drones with his roaches on the flank, and at the same time, roaches running into the natural. Rhett can't react to this because these attacks are surprising him so much. There's just nothing he can do. He can't both react suddenly to an attack, not knowing how strong it is, not having time to gauge how strong it is, and get back to defend his main at the same time. So Nercio is just abusing the fact that Rhett got out of position. He still hasn't told new overlords to go to the path on the right hand side of the map, and he hasn't split his army, which is something you might want to consider as well in this situation. There we go, he does split his army now, half to the main, half to the natural. He's losing all his queens, he's losing absolutely everything. So, what's actually amazing about this situation, I mean, I'm just kind of casting at the moment, I'm just saying this is happening, this is happening, this is happening. Rhett just feels like shit in this situation. We've all been here, he's split his army, he's like, okay, pull back. He's just keeping a good eye on everything, wait for more reinforcements. He's like, you know what, I've got Roach Hydra, it doesn't matter that I'm outsupplied, I'm out economied. I've got Roach Hydra and you've only got roaches. And as long as he keeps this good Hydra count behind, they're like the artillery behind his roach line. The problem though, you can't chase your opponent's army like that. When you're using an immobile army like this, you can't get lured out of position. We see these roaches just killing so many units. So, the game's not over. We're still at an interesting point, but let's talk about something quickly. How do we summarize how Rhett got into that situation? I guess is what I really want to talk about. Rhett got into that situation by basically not having the proper map vision while being greedy. So, if you remember when he took the 3rd base at the start of the game, he scouted with Lings, he saw the Roach Warren, he saw, okay, he's not going Massling Bane, he's got a lot of drones in here, and then he took his 3rd base. Now, later on here, he's like, okay, aggression's over, and rather than instantly getting back map control, getting back his vision, and continuing to scout his opponent, he basically just went, I'm just going to focus on my own stuff. And he just sat there holding down the D key, which Rhett loves to do, and he's really good at it, and he's 1,000 times better than I am at this game. But it seems like that's his safety zone, and that's something you can never have as your safety zone as a Zerg player. Whenever you get behind, whenever something crazy is happening, you want to get map control back as your #1 step. Units on the towers, if it's Zerg vs Zerg, overlords just all along the paths over the map, overlord, overlord, overlord. And then from there you can see what's going on. From there you can drone, and it's kind of semi-safe, because you're going to see the attack coming soon enough to react, to position well. What Rhett was doing is he was just droning blindly, and just not thinking about what could possibly come at him. So that really cost him, despite going kind of the better composition. Like the thing is, you might think, oh, you know, Nercio's style is so good, all this attacking everywhere. Yeah, but, you know, it was Rhett that let it work. Rhett left holes in his map vision, in everything that's going on, and he let Nercio basically just stick his hands inside these holes and rip him open. And that's basically why Rhett's in this horrible position. Now, that's kind of the summary of the points. He basically kept droning blind. You can't drone blind ever. You need to always know what your opponent's doing. He should have checked the drones at the gold base earlier, and he would have actually seen a very low drone count there, and he would have been fine, because he would have built units to react. He would have positioned his units at both his 3rd and his natural. He would have been like, it's all good, I'm actually set up. So how did he get out of this situation? I mean, how's he even still alive? It's because he's gone Hydras, and Hydras are just such a good unit. And he has reacted well once he's seen the attacks coming in. Obviously he's seen them too late, which is why he's taken so much damage, but once he saw them, he basically split his units. I mean, you go here, and he kept watching. He didn't just go, okay, let's go back to macroing. He's obviously memorized that so well, he can just macro while looking at the minimap. And that's something we all want to try and do. But he'd always keep an eye on his armies. So as soon as he's like, okay, half my army goes here, half goes here, and then 4 roaches from Nurture would come at this side, and they'd like clean it up, and 30 roaches would come at the other side, and he'd only have like 10 roaches and a few hydras here. So he'd instantly pull this side back, and then he'd bring the other side over, group up, and fight Nurtures off. So he was always actually reacting to that remarkably fast. And you might think, oh, but how do you do that if you're not Rhett, who trains quite a lot? You know, he's obviously a pro gamer in that. How do you do the same thing? Well, you don't. You get your map control. You keep your overlords out there, so you've got more time to actually react. You don't get in this shit situation in the first place, and it works out a lot better. So, back into the game. Yeah. Alright. Ba-dum-dum-dum. We do see, alright, what's he doing? He's like, I got Roach Hydra, I'm droning. I've still got all these overlords just sitting in this clump, not getting down the right hand side of the map. More counterattacks coming in, you know, little one here, big one here. This is exactly what I was just talking about. He needs to pull some units back. Okay, he's just pulling 2 roaches, that's not enough. But he's obviously afraid of the big attack mostly. And he's just gonna kill so many roaches. And look at this, Nurture doesn't even shift click, he manually does it. Freak. But, okay, so this Roach Hydra is, you know, these roaches can't really fight it. But he didn't really position quite the way he needed to. So let's go back and look at that. You've probably all experienced this, where your opponent just kind of shimmies around your army, and your army just gets stuck on buildings and stuff. So, here comes Nurture's force, here comes Rhett's. Rhett has enough to fight him. He needs to A move. So what he does, he only moves up here. And let's watch how his army moves and watch how Nurture micros. So his army just kind of manually gets pulled around. And Nurture is just outmaneuvering the shit out of him, and his units are just getting stuck behind each other. So what should he have done differently? As soon as you see your opponent's pulling behind, there's no reason not to split half your army there. Just box it, tell it to go there, and then A move it up. It'll get you a better concave even if they stay where they are. As it was, obviously, yeah, Rhett was kind of manually moving a few roaches down, but it wasn't enough. And as a result, we see, you know, look, Nurture, while he has an inferior army that shouldn't be able to trade well, he's actually trading well. Stopping upgrades, picking off individual roaches, because he can just avoid the hydras. Look at this, getting a queen, you know, it's just massive damage. We do see Rhett though, he still has a scary army, but you know, after losing that much stuff, you've only got one choice as the Zerg player. Just defend with what you can up there, and go for the all-in. And you know, you've got to go, there's no way you can avoid these spines. This is the best engage you could possibly get. Just move up as best you can. And unfortunately though, Rhett is dead. So he does have to type out GG. So basically guys, let's look at it, remember those key points from the opener. If you go hatch first, 16 pool and 16 gas, really good way of doing it. Just grabbing them both, getting Ling speed as soon as you can, and then getting a Baneling nest as soon as you get the 50 gas, and grabbing a spine crawler as well. That way you can just have a minimum number of Zerglings, you can keep droning safely, your overlords will see if any more big numbers of Lings come out, and you can always react to that with Lings of your own. And then, once it gets to the stage where they can come out with a horrendous force, a really scary force, sorry, not horrendous, a horrific force. H words. So basically, you can always have Banelings. Banelings for defense are good. Banelings are really, really good. And yeah, what do though? You scout. And this is something, I guess, I haven't really touched on the fundaments of ZvZ that much. The fundament is comparing economies. You're meant to do this in any matchup, but in Zerg vs Zerg it's the most obvious. Basically, in Zerg vs Zerg, you're always going to be looking at each other's economies, you're going to be comparing it. So, ideally, what you'd be doing is you'd always have a Zergling running in here every 30 seconds behind your opponent's mineral line, and you'd go, look at how many drones there are there. And you can estimate it's about 8 drones. Like, what is that? It is 8. There we go. And you can look at your own and you can be like, I have 6. And you can go, my opponent's ahead in economy. Now, you're like, well, that's assuming the mains are saturated the same. So let's check out 15. 15. Yep, that's correct. So just looking at this and comparing it to your own natural tells you, hey, Nurchio, you're 2 drones ahead of me. And then you can be like, alright, so well, if you're droning harder than me, there's 2 options. If I'm already committing to a timing attack, then I should just go through with it. You know, you've gone higher in economy, you can have less defense, this should work. But otherwise it's like, okay, you can't be aggressive to me, let's keep building drones, let's keep building drones. In normal circumstances, the more drones you see from your opponent, the more you can build of your own. And you always want to be aiming to have more than them. I see some people do this and they're like, oh, he has 8, and they'll individually go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And then they'll go, oh, I have 6, so I need SDD, 1, 2, and they'll build 2 drones. And I'll be like, no, man. Defender's advantage is massive. You can go always about 5 drones ahead of your opponent. Sometimes quite a lot more, depending on how the fighting's going. You don't want to just match your opponent's economy. You want to get ahead in economy. You want to see, oh, you're droning. I'm gonna build drones. You're building units. I've got some good defense. I've got the banelings to counter you. I'm gonna keep droning. So it's always about getting ahead in droning and then pressuring your opponent to still force them to stop droning. When you get to the top level though, it's a lot harder to get your opponent to stop droning, and that's why we do see these guys basically just droned like crazy people. Like Nurchio built some speedlings because he's like, you know, because he skipped the baneling nest in the spine. He figured this way he can scout, he can get a better idea of what's going on. But yeah, we see they're just droning like friggin' madmen. Just drones. And that's basically what you want to do, as long as you can verify, if you're the multitasking to run through their base and you know, you've got lots of drones, or you're taking all your gases and you've got lots of drones, you're teching, I'm going to either all-in you before you get mutas out, or your roach speed or whatever it is, or I'm going to tech myself even harder than you. Never just try to match your opponent though. If you're going to do the same sort of thing as them, you want to outdo them at it. So it's kind of this funny mirror match, which is obviously what it is. Where all sorts of interesting different things happen. So anyway guys, I'm going to swap the camera back to me just so I can answer some questions now. It's really dark in here actually, so I'll turn that light on so you guys can see me a little bit better. It doesn't look as weird. Alright guys, a lot of questions. So Luppy says he doesn't think he's ever done a hatch first in a ZvZ. ZvZ, he always starts with a fast pull for ladder games. And Henry was saying, that wasn't a question, but he just took that, and he was like, you know, this might be something for you to comment on, some of these things. And I'm like, okay. So yeah, I like pull gas as well. I think hatch first is something that's nice to know. It's up to your playstyle. We're going to go over Nurchio's playstyle now, which is more what I prefer. Less risky, much better for ladder player, where 6 pulls, 7 pulls, 9 pulls, 10 pulls can absolutely just kill you if you hatch first. So, Siege 13 says, is a baneling nest an absolute requirement with a hatch first build to stop zerglings? Or is there another way to be safe about hatch first? That's actually a really, really good question, and you can go roaches, but you need one or the other. You need roaches or banelings. If you just go speedlings, you're always going to need to have such a ridiculous number of them. Whereas roaches can defend chokes very easily. They can sit on the ramp. Banelings can, you know, obviously just hard counter zerglings really easily. So I would say the only time a baneling nest is a necessity when you're doing a hatch first build to stop enemy zerglings is if you're somehow behind in lava. So hatch first versus hatch first maybe, where they're on an equal lava count. The only time it's 100% necessary to build a baneling nest though is if they're ahead in lava. So if your opponent has gone a hatch first and you've gone a 14 speedling expand, you're going to have less lava than them. So as a result, you need to get a baneling nest. Or if you go roaches, you're just going to need to overcommit so much to roaches, because you're not going to to actually be 100% safe unless you've got some amazing scouting. They don't deny your scouting at all. then you'd need to just build safety roaches, and safety roaches cost so much, whereas 4 banelings doesn't cost